would you be terribly surprised if Leicester choked? I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Leicester and Chelsea both choked this weekend. I'm concerned.
The Paddy Power Half Hour on OTB Sports. Minimal contact in stadiums. That shouldn't stop the usual suspects from going down. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Now you're welcome along to the Paddy Power Half Hour here in Off the Ball at 1:30 every single Friday. We look ahead to the Premier League games, tell you what to watch and why, and also navigate our way through the betting markets as well. Joining me on the line today, he is shielding himself from the November weather that we're having in May. Jared Gilroy from your house, how are you getting on?
I should have gloves on, really. That would have made the joke land properly there, wouldn't it?
I should have. If only we planned this show beforehand, it would have worked better. But on the other line is the statsman and odds competitor from Paddy Power. It's Jason Murphy this week. Jason, how are you?
Yeah, very good, Enda, thanks.
Is it pissing the rain down Carlo as well?
Yeah, brutal, lads. But look, there's a good summer ahead, good days ahead, and yeah, I know some people think winter has started already, but no, we'll get a bit of sunshine soon enough. Well,
good days ahead and a big day of Premier League football ahead this Sunday. It's the final weekend of Premier League action, and it's a full slate of 4 o'clock kickoffs as usual on Sunday. Coming up this weekend, we have Leicester against Tottenham, Wolves against Man United, West Ham take on Southampton, Sheffield United against Burnley, Fulham take on Newcastle, Leeds West Brom, Arsenal against Brighton, Aston Villa against Chelsea, that's an important one, Man City, the champions, take on Everton, and Liverpool against Crystal Palace at 4 o'clock as well. We'll have live commentary of that with Brian Kerr and Stephen Doyle, so double dub on that. It's a massive weekend of Premier League because usually we have relegation battles, which is disappointing that we don't. They're all three of the clubs are already down. We already have a champion in Man City, but we do have a three-way clash for the top 4. 66 points Leicester on, 66 points Liverpool on, and 67 points Chelsea are on. The goal difference stands. Liverpool have a goal difference of 23, Leicester have a goal difference of 20, and Chelsea have a goal difference of 24. Sorry, Chelsea are ahead on goal difference. So Chelsea in the driving seat with an extra point and extra goal. Liverpool are probably ahead of Leicester when you're looking at the goal difference, and then Leicester again, they're struggling going into the last game of the season, a big one against Tottenham. Before we get into those games though, I saw a tweet the other day, gained a little bit of traction on Twitter, and it was basically saying that there was no memorable moments of this Premier League season. I'm not sure I fully agree with this, Ger. There have been some fantastic moments in this Premier League season, albeit we might not remember them all because there's been so many games in such a short period of time.
Oh no, it's true. A goalkeeper scores a header to keep a team in with a chance of qualifying for the Champions League every week, pretty much every season. We should take that for granted. Or the reigning champions concede 7 to a team who avoided relegation in the last moment of the last season. That happens every year. That's just Liverpool's memorable moments that I can think of off the top of my head. I said last week on this show that it hasn't been a great season, and then actually I was corrected afterwards by people who were like, no, you've just watched too much football. If you'd only watched the usual amount of football and not had it on all the time because every game was being played on TV, then the coagulation wouldn't have happened in your brain. You might actually realise that there's been loads of amazing bits. And Saint-Maximin has had like some highlight reel plays. I don't know, Leeds have been sensational. There's been loads of stuff, right?
Yeah, it's completely that. It is the fact that there's been so many games on that you just don't remember everything that's happened. Eric Lamella's Rabona goal is probably one of the most ridiculous goals I've ever seen in my life, and it was chalked off within 3 days because there was another slate of games happening. Jason, any highlights from this season that come to mind for you?
Yeah, just thinking back on it, like you're right in what you're saying. It's just been back to back. It's been non-stop. My favourite match of the day is always the one about 2 weeks before Christmas because they get in midweek fixtures and you can avoid knowing the results and sit down and watch it old school, and it's really enjoyable. And match of the day as a result has been on a lot this season midweek with all the games that they've had to squeeze in, and it's really been enjoyable. If you just watch the highlights, it's a great league, and they've slightly shot themselves in the foot kind of doing these standalone games, but understandable why they've done it. But it's not a personal highlight, but just memories that come to mind was Liverpool against Spurs back in December, where Mourinho, there was talks of him actually pulling off a title win. They should have won that game at Anfield. They had the chances to do it. But Bobby Firmino, the header from the corner at the end, and the fact that there was fans there to witness it. Phil Thompson said, Liverpool probably don't score that goal. They don't win the corner to get the opportunity unless those fans are there cheering them on. And that was a great game, and it's probably one of the standalone ones that that sticks out for me. Yeah, no, it has been a great season. Football always delivers. It does.
Yeah, it's been a great distraction from what's been going on in the world, and at times it's felt like the most important thing that's happening. There are some important games this weekend. There are only really 3 important games, so that's what we're going to focus on today. We usually run through all of the fixtures, but there's only really 3 games in town that you're going to want to watch, and that is Leicester against Tottenham, Liverpool against Crystal Palace, and Aston Villa against Chelsea. So we'll start with the Leicester against Tottenham team. We asked our Instagram poll to see who they think will win this, and Brendan Rodgers is way ahead. Leicester are going to win this according to our Instagram account, and you know, this is a game where Leicester need to show how clutch they can really be in the big moments. They were very clutch in the FA Cup. I thought they were absolutely outstanding. Did it have something to do with the fans? Jerry, you're nodding your head already. It's not going to turn into another Brendan Rodgers fest of me hating Brendan Rodgers. I've always said he was a brilliant coach. All I've said, I just want them to deliver when they really need to deliver, and this weekend they need to deliver. So let's start with Leicester then. Tottenham are going into this in horrible form. Harry Kane is out the door. He's odds on to go to Man City at the end of the season. They don't even have a manager yet, and everybody hates their owner. Surely this is a game Leicester are going to win here, Jer.
I don't know. I just think that the final day of the season has gone down in folklore for a bunch of crazy results because it is the final day of the season, and the pressure on all of these teams is so great. And there is no pressure on other teams, and so that frees them a little bit to perform in the way. Like, if you think about some of the incredible moments of skill that we've seen this season, would we have seen the same number of them, particularly from younger players, if there had been crowds who were ready to give out or to get on the players' backs? Would John Stones have been given the time to play his way into form at the start of the season? I'm not sure about all that kind of stuff. So I do feel like weird stuff happens on the final day of the season, and I like, in terms of bets, I personally would be looking at the matches where nothing really matters and going, the best team is going to win in those matches. With this one, like, would you be terribly surprised if Leicester choked? I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Leicester and Chelsea both choked this weekend. I'm concerned. I have concerns, and I don't think it's anything to do with Brendan Rodgers, or I don't think it's anything to do with his team choking. I just think that I don't think it's anything to do with him if the team don't actually win this game. It's a hard game for them at the end of the season. The point you make about Spurs notwithstanding, they were pretty abject against Villa midweek. So look, I don't know. I'm terrified of what happened to Leicester with the mad celebrations and the crazy high, and now the low of the game midweek. All of a sudden they've got to come back out and face an opponent who play good football and might be playing for new deals in some instances. I don't know, will Harry Kane try a leg? I'm not sure. So, interesting. Hard to tell.
I think clutch is the key term here, because that's what you're really asking your players to do. You're asking them to perform at the level that they have been doing for the last 2 years, because it really is 2 years that Leicester have been performing to this level, except for the last week. I think if they don't finish in top 4, they'll have spent 4 days or 5 days in total off the entire 2 seasons out of the top 4, and 2 of those days happen to be on the final day of the season. So this is where you're asking Leicester to really perform here. You're asking the likes of Maddison, you're asking Jimmy Vardy to step up and perform when you really need them most. And Leicester, probably their season, if they finish in the top 4 and win the FA Cup, that's a phenomenal season for Brendan Rodgers and the Leicester players as well. So you're thinking bigger contract for them, bigger move if they want it, and the club can take that step forward that they really want. Jason, 2 questions for you in relation to this game. Number 1 is, we've spoken about the impact of fans and how that actually has impacted betting throughout the season. So with the fans back in, does that change the way that you have addressed this game? And secondly, with the Harry Kane news, does that change things going into this game as well?
Yeah, first of all, the fans coming back, it does impact prices, and studies have shown that once you get a certain number of fans in, like a couple of thousand, you'll still get benefit from 40,000 fans, but the benefit you get from a couple of thousand to 40,000 starts to plateau. So there is an advantage there to Leicester, and that's feeding into this price of 19 to 20 for Leicester to win in 90 minutes. The home advantage of fans, like, it's hard to quantify it, but the great example is, if you think of that Spurs game, I think it was Olympiacos in the Champions League, where the ball boy gets the ball to Spurs and they score off the back of it because of a quick throw in, and Mourinho's giving them high fives and whatever. Happy days. There's all those little things that are so hard to quantify that factor into home advantage and give Leicester that extra chance here of winning with fans than they would without. But in terms of this price, and this is what we've tried to tell people on this show, is it's all about the price. And I think that Leicester price is too short for a couple of factors. one of them being the Harry Kane. I think he'll be 100% motivated, particularly if it is his last game and he's in a golden boot race with Mo Salah that has a great chance of winning. So Harry Kane's going to be fired up. Leicester are missing Johnny Evans, which is a massive impact. And also in this price, I wouldn't like the 19 to 20 because if news filters true that Chelsea are 2-0 up at Villa Park, Liverpool are 2-0 up at Palace, the Leicester motivation's gone out of it. So that price of 19 to 20 is too short for me this weekend, and I'd be looking to side with Spurs in the double chance, or maybe Harry Kane. He's 11 to 10 to pip Mo Salah. Obviously, Mo Salah, they're on the same number of goals, but Mo Salah is expected to score a few more against Palace than Kane against Leicester. But I think Kane at 11 to 10 top goal scorer. I can see him scoring one on Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's my favourite part of the final game of the season, especially with fans in that somebody gets a text message, you hear that the opposition side that you're relying on the result has scored or they've conceded, and then you hear a big cheer and suddenly the momentum of the game changes. And it's one of those weird things that really is hard to quantify the impact that it has, but it genuinely does have an impact on the way that games are going. One team that benefited and probably have been suffering over the last couple of years, not that it is the sole reason clearly, but one team that definitely do benefit from playing at home with fans is Liverpool. They've got fans back in the stadium when they're playing against Crystal Palace this weekend for the first time, and their Anfield record has been atrocious since they lost fans, so it clearly does have a slight impact. And Crystal Palace are without Eze. That's big news going into this game as well. Liverpool really ticking well against Burnley during the week. Ger, when you're talking about clutch players, Mo Salah, Mane, Firmino, Thiago over the last couple of weeks have really been stepping up their game. I think Liverpool are favourites to maybe even finish third here.
Yeah, they should be. And given the quality of football that they've played under Klopp over that period of time, you've got to take that whole thing as a continuum. And they obviously have decided to play centre-backs at centre-back, and things have improved. Granted, those centre-backs are not necessarily going to be Premier League players for the rest of their careers, but the current two centre-backs are better than the two midfielders, it turns out, they played. And so I think he's got that right. And I think that Thiago in midfield has bedded in and he's doing the job he's supposed to do. But this is Crystal Palace. And this is Roy Hodgson, both of whom have a relationship independently of each other with Anfield and with big games at the end of the season. And I don't know. Would you be terribly surprised if this finished 1-1? If we could fast forward to Sunday evening and I gave you the results and said that finished 1-1, you would be like, well, that's a massive, massive, massive shock. The odds, I think, are kind of ridiculous on this. So obviously the market doesn't agree, but I don't know. I see ghosts everywhere for Liverpool. I see Christian Benteke. I see the fact that all the Liverpool fans always go on about it wasn't Steven Gerrard's slip that cost them the league. It was the 3-1 lead against Crystal Palace that they coughed up. Do you know, what if it's 3-1 with 25 minutes left to go and suddenly it's 3-2? Yeah. What are the Liverpool fans thinking then?
For fans of narrative, it is a great weekend because you've got Roy Hodgson going to Anfield, his final game for Crystal Palace. You have Crystal Palace against Liverpool, the ghost of that game. You have Brendan Rodgers potentially getting his revenge on the Liverpool fans that hounded him after not finishing or not winning the league with that team, and potentially not being the person that knocks them out of the Champions League spot. So there's a whole lot of narrative going on into this game, and for lovers of that, it is a fantastic weekend. But Jason, I have to say, going into this game, especially with Eze out, the fact that they rely so heavily on Wilfried Zaha, and if he's not there, Eze is there. Without him, Crystal Palace are Crystal Palace. They've nothing special about them. So I just think that Liverpool should be strong favourites going into this, but I don't think that's actually reflected in the odds, is it?
No, it's very much reflected. They're 1-7 to win this game in 90 minutes. Palace are 14-1 to cause an upset. And to give it the context that we've alluded to, if Eze was there and Zaha was on form, and this game meant a bit more to Palace in terms of fighting a relegation battle, that price goes from 1-7 to maybe 3-10, 1-3 potentially. We've seen Liverpool struggle against West Brom last week and Alisson having to bail them out. Very likely that something could happen, that they don't be leading at half time, Palace dig in, want to give Roy a decent send off, and these ghosts that we've talked about. But all things being equal, with Salah chasing a golden boot, with Liverpool getting Thiago in the right positions, Liverpool should win this game. What we do for motivation is normally the markets move at half a goal, and that's partly why I'm saying the 1-7 would be 3-10 if Palace were fully motivated and fighting a relegation battle. So it's all depending on how you factor in that motivation. Do Palace kind of switch off at the end of the season? You know, they're going on holidays. I know they're professional, but they're going on holidays the following week. They don't want to be, sitting in a leg cast for the summer. They want to be able to do what they can do, or potentially some of them might be heading to the Euros. So that's what motivation does, and it drives prices sometimes too far, and maybe Liverpool want just a little bit short with the context of the history that's in it. But if Liverpool aren't in the Champions League next season, I'm going to be very surprised.
You mentioned the Euros there and the motivation going into it. Aston Villa are a very interesting side when you're talking about motivation going into the game against Chelsea, because a lot of their players who are just back from injury now suddenly have a motivation to get into that Euro squad before it is actually finalised. Aston Villa, Grealish obviously back. You can see what it does to the team against Tottenham during the week. Ollie Watkins absolutely flying as well. Tyrone Mings might be looking to get himself a cheeky little place on the plane as well. Chelsea, Champions League final to worry about. Maybe they're safe on the 68 points if they get a draw here. This one, for Chelsea fans, I'm a little bit worried about, because Tuchel comes in, clearly has a revolutionary impact, but then suddenly you're staring into the abyss of losing an FA Cup final, not getting Champions League football, and then potentially losing the Champions League final to Man City a couple of days later. Add into the fact that the women's team lost the Champions League final in fantastic fashion as well. Suddenly it's turning into a bit of a disaster season for Chelsea if they don't get those final two things.
There's obviously 2 games within which they can secure qualification for the Champions League next year, and I don't know. I think it's going to be hard for them to be as motivated for this game against Villa as it is for the Champions League final. Obviously, even though the ultimate prize, one is you get the trophy on the night, the long-term prize from Tuchel's perspective is that he gets to build over the course of the summer with all of the money that he would get if they're qualifying for the Champions League. Clearly winning the Champions League is a massive prize in and of itself. So I don't know. I think you're right. I think you're right to be concerned. I think that now Villa are one of those teams where it actually doesn't matter what happens to them, because nothing that they do will affect their position in the league. They're going to finish 11th one way or the other. But I don't know. I think Villa could get a result here. I realise that obviously I'm a complete homer on that, but I was really surprised that they beat and played as well as they did against Spurs, because they, again, had nothing to play for. But keep them going. It's a good sign for them. You've got John Terry there as well for the fans of narrative. I don't know. I give them a chance.
Yeah, I just think with Jack Grealish back, if you watch him during the week, the impact that he has on the whole squad dynamic is amazing. Because suddenly Ollie Watkins isn't as isolated as he has been up front since Grealish is injured. Frees up space for El Ghazi out the left wing, and they just have a superstar in their team, and that's the difference that Grealish makes. Jason, I suppose that leads me into the question about Jack Grealish. How much does he change the odds going into this game, the fact that he's going to be fit for this?
Yeah, he's one of those boys that really moves the prices. It's obvious, and that's football. We match up the pricing, but any football fan will tell you who's going to move them the most. And Grealish, he's on Messi-like levels, what he does to the price when he's missing. And to give the context, Chelsea are 4-9 to win this game, and like we said, it's normally half a goal moves for motivation when Villa aren't interested. So Villa had something to play for. That 4-9 is potentially around 10-11 for Chelsea to win this game. So that's the kind of difference it would make. Likewise, if Villa were fully motivated, 10-11 playing Chelsea, but Grealish was missing, then that price jumps likewise from 10-11 into about 1-2, 8-15. He's massive. He just drives prices. But in terms of that Chelsea price, I'd be nervous backing it. Leicester's best chance really here is Aston Villa's back four and keeper keeping a clean sheet and keeping Chelsea scoreless. Maybe Watkins and Grealish doing something the other end, because I don't think Liverpool are going to slip up. Martinez has been excellent in the goal all season, but for Leicester fans, I wouldn't want to be pinning my hopes on Tyrone Mings not making a mistake in this game against this Chelsea attack. Likewise for England in the summer, they have a great chance of winning that tournament if Maguire is fit. If he's not, and you have to go with Tyrone Mings, that definitely moves England's prices as well. So it's going to be fascinating. The last day, it's going to be brilliant. And like Ger was talking about at the top of the show, weird things can happen. And what we always see is an increased glut of goals on the last day of the season. If you look at the stats from the last 5 seasons, on average for 10 games in the Premier League, you'll see 27 goals. But if you look at the last day of the season, for the last 5 seasons, that 27 goals goes up to 34 goals. And what's the thinking? What's the rationale behind that? Well, I think the defenders are on holidays. They have the flip-flops, where the strikers are still chasing goal bonuses. And like I say, people don't want to get injured either. So rather than making that tackle and stopping the striker getting through, you let him go and he gets the shot and he scores the goal, and that's why the goals always increase on the last day of the season. Yeah. We're doing a special at Paddy Power here that you can back 35 or more goals. It's normally 13-8 is what we should be pricing up here, but we're going to increase it to 3-1. And the great thing about that bet, all these 10 games kick off at the same time, 4 o'clock, no matter what the results are. As long as the goals are coming in, you're getting closer and closer to that bet. So there's a bit of entertainment and value in it.
Yeah, you always have one game that's absolutely crazy. And I remember a couple of seasons ago, I was working at the Bournemouth Crystal Palace game on the final game of the season. It was my first game ever reporting at a Premier League game, and there was I think there was 6 goals or 7 goals in it.
5-3, yeah,
5-3. So 8 goals. So it was absolutely a basket case of a game. Both teams were safe, and it was a phenomenal game. I think Leeds West Brom is looking at the game that's most likely to have a lot of goals. You know, both those teams have been just on the beach for the last couple of weeks, so I think there's potential there. Let's talk about the bets that we've made throughout the year, because on the show we do a weekly special or a couple of weekly specials on things that we think might happen. Some have been good, some have been bad. We're going to do the good, the bad and the ugly of all those bets. Not all of them. Jason, I know you've selected some of the ones that we have, so I think if we could throw them up on screen, here's some of the selections that we made. So obviously we had Sheffield United not to win a Premier League game until December. So that was almost, I think that was early on in the season. That came through. It was that was during our period of some really good tips, and then it kind of just fell off a cliff a little bit after Christmas. So Jason, you selected which ones you thought were good, which ones were bad, which ones were ugly. So I'll let you take us through these.
Yeah, there's a long list there, and God bless me eyesight because I can't actually read it from this screen. But if you want to call out any one of them, I'm happy to give you the context around it.
So let's talk about it. This one is a bit off the wall, but you have it down as good, and explain why it is. Ederson to score a penalty against Tottenham. So there was a narrative behind that.
Yeah, so that was the time Man City were missing penalties, and Pep had come out saying about Ederson possibly taking one. We had it up at, I think it was 25-1, but I think we enhanced it to 40-1. And then they're awarded a penalty, and he's making his way up to the halfway line. And Rodri then all of a sudden, steps up and he takes a terrible penalty in the end. But it was a bit of crack. I thought it was a good angle, which we always suggest on the bets. The value comes with finding a good angle. And we actually paid out on that in the end as well, because Rodri shouted the loudest, he got to take it. So we paid out about $6,000 on that bet for people anyways. Yeah,
I think it was 3 penalties Man City had missed within a very short period of time, and Ederson was being pegged as the next taker. He was nearly going to take it, and then he almost got the shot, but he didn't eventually take the penalty. I'll go through the ones that are still TBC, because there are a couple that still we're waiting until the end of the season until we see if they come out. So Leicester to finish ahead of Liverpool. This was 12-1 at the time, and this was when Leicester, I think Liverpool were in the top 4. Liverpool might have been second at the time that we placed it, so it was November. This is still TBC, so this is coming down to the final game of the season. There is St Tottenham's Day, Arsenal to finish ahead of Tottenham. That's still TBC. That was 10-1 in December. Then there's Jesse Lingard to score more EPL goals than Kai Havertz. That's the TBC. Leicester not to finish in the top 4, so that's refreshed version of the Leicester bet. That was placed in April. And then Harry Kane to have 21 or more English Premier League assists in this season. So I don't think that one's going to come out. But do you want to take us through those ones?
Yeah, so first of all, the Harry Kane one, he started on fire, 9 assists in 10 games. I know it says December there on the list, I think, but in terms of the Premier League season, December we think is halfway through, but it was actually only 10 games in, and he just started on fire. And look, we priced it up, we thought it was a fair price, but we didn't think it was a great bet because we could not see him maintaining the rate that he had, and Son was actually helping him out, scoring some goals with very low XGs. In terms of Leicester finishing ahead of Liverpool, we've had a great run out of this one. The biggest price we had it was 12-1 back when we went up with it. It went as short as 1-7 at one stage, and just in the last couple of weeks, Liverpool winning the games they've won, and Leicester starting to stutter a bit. So it's going to be an unlucky loser for people there, but it was a great bet at the time. Liverpool were starting to look like they were going to struggle, and Leicester were just being well run and heading in the right direction. Craig, the Lingard one against Havertz, at the time they both had 2 goals each, and it was a tricky one to price. But soon after that, Lingard banged in another 7 goals, and I think Havertz has only scored 2 more since, so that's definitely going to settle as a Lingard winner without a shadow of a doubt. And the same Tottenham's won, that was the week of the North London derby, the initial one. We went up 6-1, and Spurs went and won the game 2-0, and we pushed it out to 10-1. And it's just, look, Arsenal fans that haven't had a chance to celebrate it in a while, haven't had 20 years of it, and it's potential this weekend that they could do it, and that would really just be rubbing salt into a really sore wound for Spurs fans this season.
Yeah, God, Arsenal are only 1 point behind Tottenham at this stage. That's absolutely atrocious. I'm waiting on a side bet with some of my friends that Leeds won't finish in the top 8, and the results during the week really went my way on that one, so I'm happy out with that one. Let's finish off with this one, Jason. It's the handicap table, as Paddy Power yourself and the other odds competitors put this together at the start of the season. So if you want to explain the concept, first of all, it's basically the Premier League season but with handicaps the same way as golf, and this is where each team have finished in terms of their handicaps. So this is if they're at the top and they've got a plus handicap, then they've done quite well. And then obviously Liverpool are 19th on this table. That shows you that they've done much worse than you would have pictured at the start of the season.
Yeah, this is great fun. It's proper old school odds compiling. So we start with who we think is the best team heading into the season, and we give them 0 points, and then we handicap it from there going back. The thinking being that you give them all an appropriate handicap and you price them all up the same to win this handicap table. So they'd all be priced at 18-1. We do offer 4 places at a quarter odds on it. So we have this market out 2 weeks before the start of the season. The reason being, we leave it until 2 weeks before the start of the season, so we know all the transfers, all the players that are likely to be at which clubs. And then, like I say, it's old school odds compiling. So look, you might miss the boat. You mightn't have seen it at the start of last season, but it's a market we offer every season. And the way to approach it is, if you look at the top 4 there, again, it's obvious the narrative, the teams that have performed well: West Ham, Leicester, Leeds have had great seasons. We really like Leeds, and there's other people would have given Leeds a bigger handicap, and on other handicap tables with other competitors, Leeds might actually be topping it. The thing that we got wrong here, and we don't get everything right, is I think we gave Aston Villa too much of a handicap there. They were a little bit lucky to stay up last season. If you look at the first game post-lockdown, Sheffield United had the ball over the line that technology doesn't pick up. Villa get a point out of that game and end up staying up at the end of the season. They kicked on, great job by Dean Smith and Jack Grealish, but I think Villa are in that top 4 just because of us being slightly wrong on the handicap. And then conversely, if you look at the bottom of the table, what have those 3 teams gotten common there? They've had injury issues this season. If you look at Wolves, once Jimenez went out of the team, it was a massive loss. And considering the fact that Jota had gone in the summer as well, over the last 2 seasons, that was, a lot of the Wolves' creativity and goals gone out of that team. Liverpool, we know the issues they've had with Van Dijk, but outside of Van Dijk, really bad injuries. And then Sheffield United, likewise as well. Jack O'Connell has been a massive loss for them. And also then the transfer business in the summer, having Dean Henderson called back to United and then having to spend 20 million on Ramsdale, who we'd all agree isn't as good as Henderson. That Sheffield United back unit that was really good last season wasn't available this season. And yeah, so it goes to show like that injuries really can dictate how well teams can do over the course of a season and how teams have performed against expectations. Just interesting to look at Spurs with the handicap that we've given them and the actual points total. It's not too far off the average. So Mourinho, he kind of performed to expectations, and I still believe if he gets through that second leg against Zagreb, which they should have, he's probably still in the job, and potentially Spurs are in the Europa League final on Wednesday night. Yeah,
it shows you how bad Sheffield United have done with a plus handicap of 43 and still managed to finish bottom of the table. So they've been absolutely atrocious. Before we finish up then, final predictions then, top 4, who's going to get it? Chelsea, Liverpool, Leicester. Gerald, let you go first.
I'm going to go for Leicester and Liverpool.
Leicester and Liverpool. Jason?
Yeah, for me, I'm definitely going to go with Chelsea and Liverpool, just to say that we do have named the top 4 betting on site. So if it's Liverpool and Chelsea, it's 1-3. If it's Liverpool-Leicester, it's 4-1. And if it's Chelsea-Leicester, it's 6-1, which you can back on site. All
right, yeah, I think Leicester or Liverpool might get it. I think Chelsea are going to choke at the end of the season. It's going to be an interesting one for Thomas Tuchel going into that Champions League final. That's our show for today. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the football over the weekend. And remember, always gamble responsibly. We'll chat to you later.
The Paddy Power Half Hour on OTB Sports. Minimal contact in stadiums. That shouldn't stop the usual suspects from going down. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.